tools to your mayor, whoever he or she may be, to actually start to deliver on the vision. So propose a budget, appoint the city manager and department heads. I'll come back to veto in 1 second. If you look down into the next section, all of those two powers I just mentioned, proposing the budget and then nominating people in leadership positions, with the check and balance of the council getting to approve of those things. So just because a mayor would propose a budget, you still got to have the council go through, amend that budget, and then adopt that budget. Okay? And the mayor may put forward a city manager candidate or a department head candidate, but then the council has to approve that person. So that's that check and balance. That was in the original initiative. That's a thing we wanted to keep with this new plan as well. Okay? So the big things are the budget, appointing and removing the key personnel, and then the third thing is a veto. And I'll jump over this one because it's not, I think it sounds bigger than it actually is. Here's what it basically is that there's ordinances, which is a very specific type of work that the legislative body does. Think of it as a bill at the city level, right? You have federal and state bills, it's a local bill. They don't happen that often, but when they do happen, they're a big deal. That the mayor would have the ability to veto that, and then the council, again, in check and balance, would be able to override that veto. And then the other big one is the budget, that, in the back and forth between the mayor and the council on the budget, there'd be the ability to veto this budget and then the council to come back and override it. I can answer more specifics there. So that's the executive mayor piece. In terms of the independent council, what we're also trying to do now is, part of the challenge right now is that the executive and the legislative branches at the local level they're all kind of on top of each other. You have the city manager sitting next to the mayor, sitting next to the council. And historically at other levels of government, separating those and then holding them accountable for each other has been a successful way to run a bigger and bigger enterprise, like a big city. So the mayor would no longer be on council, would be separate from council, but his city manager would still stay on council the way we are now. And instead of the mayor running the meetings and attending the weekly meetings, the council would select among themselves a council president to run those meetings. That would be a big, big change. So that when you watch TV on Tuesday nights, there'd be a council president who would be leading the meetings instead of the mayor. And again, that's about giving an independent space for the council apart from the mayor. If you're going to give the mayor all these sort of new options and authorities, there's got to be a check and balance and a separation. So that's one. Two is the council gets to approve the budget. That's pretty much what they do right now. Right? The city manager will put through a budget, and then the council works together to make changes and then eventually adopt the budget. Three, they confirm the city manager and department heads, as I talked about. Four, and this is something we took from the Charter Review Commission, which is one of the things people were uncomfortable with in the original initiative, was that the mayor not only got to appoint the city manager and his direct reports, but also the city treasurer, the city attorney, and the city clerk. And there are some cities that do that, but there are other cities who have those positions as elected. But the key message was maybe that's too much right now. That's a lot of the senior leadership of the city being directly run through one person. And so in the new plan what we've done, we're going to keep those folks independent. So that's what they are right now. They're appointed and removed by the council, and they'd stay that way. And again, it feeds into that spirit of creating another check and balance. So again, we're aligning people and resources, but we're keeping enough separation and independence that there's a good check and balance there. They can override mayoral vetoes. And then the last thing is, because the mayor would leave the council, and right now we have 8 council members and the mayor, so 9 total, we'd have to fill that vacancy. And so in 2012, we created a 9th council district, and then there would be a 9th council member, and then you have an odd number for council votes. Okay? All right, ethics program. This is again something that came out of the Charter Review Committee. It's another kind of check and balance. So apart from just saying person A and person B get to hold each other directly and accountable in their work, let's create a better way of holding all elected officials and all city employees to high ethical standards and codes of conduct. I'm sad to say that as a city we've had too frequently in the last few years examples where that didn't happen, and you had things in the paper, I'm sure you read some of them, where the rules weren't followed as well as they should have been. And that happens in any system, but if we're having a moment here where we're trying to get better structurally, why not also include some little bit tougher standards on what we expect from our elected leaders and our city officials from an ethical point of view. So I think there's an issue that when we've done public outreach recently, folks are very excited about. Again, it's important that it's done the right way. And so what we'd like is for the charter to reflect that. So as we put forth these changes to the charter, we'd like the charter to say that the council has to have on file an ethics ordinance that explains how they're going to make sure that there's proper training and education, that there's compliance with ethics laws, that there's resources for whistleblowers who have the courage to stand up and say, hey, I don't think something's going the right way, and that we're doing a good job of keeping things transparent. And there's lots of neat examples that we'll be bringing to council of how to do this. A lot of other cities in California and beyond are taking advantage of technology and all sorts of things to make government work better. I think there's that line, there's no better disinfectant than sunshine. That's kind of what the spirit of this one is. All right, term limits. That's something that people in Sacramento are all about, term limits, right? Or being the state capital. And I'll be honest with you, we've been doing outreach for about 2 months now on this new plan. We've probably met with about 200 folks in those 2 months. This is the one that I think there are the most strong opinions on. And I think in general, folks are actually not as excited about this one personally. I don't want to say that to tip your hands. Part of what I want to do here is get your feedback. But the idea here is this is, again, our trying to respond to some of the concerns that were raised over the last 18 months, which is that if we're going to give people who get elected to office more authority to do A, B, and C, what we don't want to create is a situation where somebody is just there forever, and we don't have in the democratic process enough tools to get rid of somebody if they're bad. So the mayor, admittedly, he doesn't have a strong opinion on this one. He's open to what the community wants to do on term limits, whether it be for the mayoral position or the council. But it was something we wanted to stimulate conversation about in the community and hear from you on, is this something we like? Because on one hand, people like term limits because it forces there to be some different new people coming into the system. On the other hand, as we've seen sometimes at the state level, somebody can lose their job right when they're starting to get good at it. Because I'd like to think I'm good at my job. I'm about a year and a half in, but I'd probably be a lot better at my job in a few years. And I think that's true for council members too. So that's a risk that folks look at. So again, that's an example of an issue where we want to get a little bit more feedback from you all. Okay, lastly, and then I'll stop talking, is this idea of voter reapproval. This is something that other cities in California have done to manage the risk of change. And what do I mean by that? Basically, I think across the city, everyone agrees we need to change, that the city needs to be better, and an increasing number of people understand that the charter needs to change for us to do that. But what makes some folks feel a lot better is, let's try it out first. I mean, changing a city charter, like changing the Constitution, it's a big deal. You don't want to be making changes a lot over the span of the city. So we're willing to make changes, but we wouldn't mind if we kind of got to make some set of changes, see how it works, and then have the opportunity to make some tweaks. And so that's what this is really trying to do. It's another kind of check and balance. So let's hurry up and try something because we have to, because the problems are too important, and we've been talking about this for quite a bit of time. But let's build into this structure somehow an opportunity for the council, for the mayor, and the future date to work with the community and say, all right, folks, we've had 8 years of this, and is this a better system? If so, great, let's make it permanent. Does it need some changes? Did we get some of the stuff right in 2010, but we didn't think of this? Okay, we can make those changes. Or, wow, this was really not the right thing to do. We thought this would have fixed things, but it didn't. Let's just go back to the way they were in 2005. So we like this one again because it's sort of a nice insurance policy, or it gives folks a little bit of ease about any kind of change we put forth. So that's the 5-point plan. As you can imagine, there's a whole bunch of detail underneath that. There's no specific legal language yet. A lot of folks have asked for that. We had some old drafts that were really close to this, but the real language is going to happen once the council has this conversation and the city attorney writes it up. So I'm happy to talk and answer questions if folks have detailed questions. I'll refer back to Chris and we'll go from there.
Great. Well, thank you for all. That's a great overview. And it's nice to hear that the work of the Charter Review Committee was taken to heart.
Absolutely.
And,
60 hours of public discussion over 7 months. That was a lot of work they did on the Charter Review Committee.
That's right. Well, thank you. So next, I think we want to hear from Mark to hear about the Police Association's perspective on what they think, how they think, to his point here in Sacramento, they see some of the big problems are, or some of the things that need to be